the sky, spirit, one with me. Your wings span the mighty ocean. Everything of your motion can concentrate. Your might and glory vanished from the sky. Just another story. It's man-made lie. It's so how it fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is LuisEwing. And hello, Louis. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm doing well. I wanted to bring this story up just to kind of get things started here. We're going to be talking about the law, but the leader of the story just crossed my desk. The leader of a group that marketed a fake currency called Liberty Dollars in the Asheville area and elsewhere have been found guilty by a federal jury of conspiracy against the government in a case of domestic terrorism. Bernard von Nothaus was convicted Friday at the conclusion of an 8-day trial in U.S. District Court in Statesville. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours, according to the Department of Justice. Charges remain pending against William Kevin Ines, an Asheville man who authorities said recruited merchants in western North Carolina willing to accept barter currency, according to court records. Ines was indicted along with von Nothaus in 2009. Attempts to undermine the legitimate currency of this country are simply a unique form of domestic terrorism, says U.S. Attorney Ann Tompkins. While these forms of anti-government activities do not incite violence, they are every bit as insidious and represent a clear and present danger to the economic stability of this country. In other words, I guess it's any attempts for barter or growing our own food or doing anything on our own without asking permission from the Federal Reserve System is a crime now. What do you think, Louis? What is this? What happened here? I mean, as far as I know, what he was, all Bernard was doing is selling a silver with his own logo and insignia on it. And maybe his only mistake was calling it $1.
I haven't read the charging instruments, and I don't know which specific statutes he's been charged with violating, but I'm very familiar with the laws of money. I've been teaching people money arguments for years, and you hear a lot of patriots talk about it, but you don't hear about many people winning with money arguments in court. But there's 3 guys out here in Washington, that's Lloyd Smith, Kurt Riggin, and myself. We have prevailed making money arguments in courts many times. We've never paid a traffic ticket. Lloyd Smith and Kurt Riggin hasn't had a driver's license since 1984. I haven't had one since 1996. And I specialized kind of in that area a long time ago. And in 1998, I caused former governor of the state, Albert Lowry, to convene an emergency special session of the legislature to change the definition of money at RCW 84.04.060, which used to say money or monies shall be held to mean gold and silver coin, gold and silver certificates, treasury notes, United States notes, and bank notes. And I'll give you the spiel. You're going to laugh at this. Lady Judge Barbara Lindy, she's the presiding judge for the King County District Courts in Seattle, goes, "Mr. Ewing, I'm finding you guilty of driving while suspended, and I read your motion for a form of papyrus. It's the best I've ever read, but I'm going to deny it. Do you have anything to say before I pass final sentencing?" And I go, I'm looking down at my ticket. I beat this ticket later on appeal. It got remanded back down with orders to dismiss because they don't want a published decision with LuisEwing's name on it saying you don't have to have a driver's license or you can't be charged with driving while suspended if your license is expired. But the case got dismissed, but the key thing, what really upset the whole court system was my money arguments. And they go, well, yeah, Your Honor, it says here I was found guilty of RCW 462342, driving while license suspended, And I just want to hear you say it for the record. I want your judicial determination. Does the revised Code of Washington apply in your courtroom? She's looking over at me like, what's Mr. Ewing up to now? And she goes, of course it does. And I go, Your Honor, I'm going to call your attention to RCW 8404-060, which says money or money shall be held to mean gold and silver coin, gold and silver certificates, treasury notes, United States notes, and bank notes. And Your Honor, again, for the record, I just want to ask, do you have an oath of office to uphold the state and federal constitutions? Yes, Mr. Ewing, I told you several times I got an oath. And I go, Your Honor, Article 1, Section 2 of the Washington Constitution says the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Sections 29 and 30 says the Constitution, state and federal, are mandatory and binding upon this court. And Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, cited by Dennis versus Moses, an 1898 decision from the first Washington Territorial Supreme Court of this state, citing Woodruff versus Mississippi, which is the leading case in the famous line of cases of the gold and silver legal tender cases, citing that section of the Constitution, says no state shall make anything but gold and silver tender payment. Your Honor, do you represent the state of Washington? Yes, Mr. Ewing, I represent the state of Washington. Well, Your Honor, now I'm going to call your attention to RCW 62A 3-603, subsection A and B. Subsection A says if I tender you payment. Subsection B says if you dishonor my tender of payment, that you've discharged the $1,000 debt that you say that you're not going to reduce. Mr. Ewing, I'm tired of your nonsense. What is your tender of payment? Well, Your Honor, if you agree to sign my contract acknowledging that you're committing perjury of your oath of office, official misconduct, misfeasance, malfeasance, and nonfeasance, I agree to pay you $1,000 in Federal Reserve notes, which by Title 18, Section 8, are defined as obligations of the United States. And just one more question, Your Honor. You represent the state of Washington. Is this some kind of a tax, this fine? She goes, yes, Mr. Ewing. I go, Your Honor, Article 31, Title 31 of the United States Code, Section 3124 says obligations of the United States aren't taxable by the state. Mr. Ewing, let me see your contract. Your Honor, can I approach the bench? And so I asked her to approach the bench. And she said yes, and I went and handed her the document. Her eyeballs about pop out of her head. Keep in mind that this was at 4:45. They always wait till everybody else is out of the courtroom before they allow me to talk. But what's funny is 3 guys came in just in time to hear the argument behind me. And she says, Mr. Ewing, I'm not going to sign your contract, and I'm not going to fine you anything either. I'm discharging the $1,000 debt. And what was funny is the guy behind me, what he said, Your Honor, I don't got the money either. And she slammed her gavel, dismissed the case, and discharged the fine, and she ran out of the courtroom. But this charge of him making fake money, I don't. Without reading the charging instrument to see what he was charged with and see what statutes he was charged with, I can't really offer an opinion. But the only thing I can say, if he passed that money off as being a so-called United States government Federal Reserve note, maybe that would probably be a crime. But I don't know if he did that. I don't know what he did, so I can't really say anything.
Well, he's looking at 25 years according to this. And they're also seeking forfeiture of 16,000 pounds of Liberty dollar coins and precious metals valued at nearly $7 million. And according to the court documents, Von Nothaus founded the National Organization for the Repeal of the Federal Reserve and Internal Revenue Code in Evansville, Indiana in 1998. And he developed the Liberty dollar, which he touted as inflation-proof alternative to official currency.
Well, he must not understand the laws of money, because if they use the Federal Reserve notes to count the money, which are obligations of the United States, it's not taxable by the state. Now they're going to argue, well, we're not the state, we're the federal government. But I can show you case law that says the state courts and federal courts are all part of one complete federal judicial system. So if they counted up that money using Federal Reserve notes to calculate what each dollar was, they can't tax it. They can't take it away. Now another problem that they have, I don't know what statutes he was charged with, but according to Title 18, Section 4001, he can only be thrown in prison for violating an act of Congress or a courts-martial. Now, under the state constitutions, if you're a male between the age of 18 and 45 and own a gun, you're presumed to be in the unregulated militia if you're not in the armed services. This is why in a civil lawsuit, an attorney, to make sure he's got jurisdiction over somebody, he has to conduct what's called the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act check to make sure that you're not in the armed services. Otherwise, they could lose jurisdiction. The court clerk's manuals in all the states basically say that's a jurisdictional issue, and if they don't do that, people can get their civil lawsuit dumped out by saying the plaintiff failed to conduct the required status check.
Well, let me stop you for just a second, Louis. Let me ask you about this. I mean, back in 1994, I started the Free American. I started the Free American radio show, and I helped start and promote the formation of the militias after what happened at Waco. And I was suddenly attacked and demonized, and been attacked and demonized ever since by Southern Poverty Law, the ADL, and even the FBI and their guide to right-wing extremists that they put out. But I had Governor Gary Johnson on my show just a few weeks ago. He was the governor when we were there, and he understood that we weren't a terrorist organization. We weren't doing anything except putting ourselves at his disposal as members of the militia. Any able-bodied male between the ages of 18 to 45. Is that correct?
Every state constitution defines a male between the age of 18 to 45 that owns a gun is in the unregulated militia. See, there's a regulated militia, which would be somebody in the Army, Navy, Marines, the National Guard. That's the regulated militia. But the unregulated militia is your common citizen who owns a gun, who's between the age of 18 and 45. But somewhere along the line, they have a body of statutes which are separate from the Constitution, where they have made the statutes not gender specific and merged male and female into a person. So now females are now a person under the code, and they're presumed to be in the militia also, which is illegal. And if you trace the statutes, you'll find that they did an amendment of an amendment of an amendment of the prima facie compilation, which under the case law is defined to leave the underlying law unchanged. I can actually prove women don't have a legal right to vote. The courts don't actually have any jurisdiction to try a woman for drunk driving or any other kind of charge if a woman between 18 and 45, because women, according to the Constitution, can't legally be in the militia. Only males can be in the militia.
Okay.
But this kind of something that most people don't know, because over the years they've amended the statutes. We used to have what's called justice of the peace courts, where they couldn't even throw you in jail. The maximum jurisdiction was a $100 fine. Over the years here in Washington, they changed the name of the justice of the peace courts and police courts to they changed the name to the Municipal Court of Seattle, and also the district courts, like the King County District Court. And now all of a sudden, these courts not of record have authority to throw you in jail up to a year. You know, and they slipped aside where they couldn't throw you in jail more than 6 months. You know, it would be a petty crime if you went to jail 6 months or less, claiming that, well, because we give trial de novo in the Superior Court, we don't have to give the trial by jury of 12 people.
Let me ask you this.
Do a jury trial of 6.
What about these? You beat your driver's license. You don't have a driver's license, so you're driving without a license.
Not since '96.
Okay. What about the now? We just had the case of the couple over there on the East Coast that just got thrown in for not paying their income tax. The Browns, the Brown family. What did they do wrong? What happened? And you know, I just played a song by David Von Kleist before you came on called "Show Me the Law." Now, what about what's the situation with the income tax? And if you sign a check and send a check in to the Internal Revenue Service, that check comes back marked paid to the order of the Federal Reserve. So the IRS is really just a collection agency for a private bank that issues our money. What's the situation, Louis?
Okay, there's a lot of half-truths being spread in the Patriot community. And I put out an email how to spot an undercover IRS agent. It is my personal opinion that most of the so-called patriot leaders or in the tax honesty movement are, I call them patriots. You know, patriots are idiots. They have good intentions, but they don't understand the law. Or they might actually be, in fact, undercover agents setting you up for a sting. Now, here's the thing, a false theory that they put out. You see all this stuff on the internet in the different magazines like the America's Bulletin, the Jubilee, the Spotlight. and they say, you're not a government employee. I work in the private sector. Therefore you're not required to pay federal income taxes. Only a federal employee is required to pay federal income taxes. I work in the private sector, and I go, what private sector are you talking about? Okay, these people are failing to distinguish the difference between free enterprise and private enterprise. If you and your boys, I don't know if you have sons or not, decide to go open up a mocha shop, and you go to the state of where are you at? You're in Arizona?
Yes, I'm in Arizona.
Okay, so you go to the state of Arizona and you apply for a master business license to be the Starbucks coffee chain. But me and my sons decide to sell Lewis's Mocha, but we don't go to the state of Washington to apply for business license. We just open up shop in front of our house. I'm engaged in free enterprise. I'm engaged in my right to contract. If I'm selling a cup of mocha to somebody for $4, it's an A and B conversation. The state can see their way out of it, but Clayton Douglas and his sons go to the state of Arizona and apply for a master business license, and they've issued you a license with a UBI number. You've asked the state to incorporate you. You've married the state. You brought a third party into it, and so the state has the absolute authority to regulate and tax their private business. There's a difference between private enterprise and free enterprise. Now, when you go to the state and you ask them, you wanna open up your hands to Uncle Sam and say, I want a master business license. Here's my W-2. Here's my W-4. Here's my social. I want unemployment if I get laid off. I want L&I if I get hurt on the job. Maybe one day I want to apply for food stamps and Medicare and welfare. You can't live off the tits of the government. You can't walk both sides of the fence and not get your balls caught on the fence. If you want to be out of the system, you have to be out of the system. That's what establishes the minimal contacts under the minimal contacts doctrine. Now, when you go read the statutes, there's a statute called the long arm statute. And when you read the case law defining the long arm statute, what the court does to determine whether or not they have jurisdiction over you is to make a judicial determination whether or not you're conducting any business in this state or within this state. Now, those key terms are very important. Whenever you see those words in any state statute, in this state or within this state, that is the invocation of the Federal Buck Act, which allowed what I call the federal states to bring in the federal income taxes into a federal area the same as though it wasn't a federal area. But see, I have no minimal contacts. I don't have a business license. I'm engaged in free enterprise. I don't have a business license. And I don't practice law. I do the law. See, attorneys practice law because they haven't learned how yet. That's why they have to have a license. That's why they have to be regulated, because they're incompetent. Same thing with driving. There's no case anywhere that says driving is a privilege. And judges used to say, Mr. Ewing, it was decided a long time ago driving is a privilege. I said, I object, Your Honor. There's no case that holds that. Mr. Ewing, Spokane versus Port decided that. Oh, well, Your Honor, I have a copy of that right here. And let me read you what it says. Okay, I see a quotation here. It says driving is a privilege, but that's not the holding of this case. It cites another case called Evergreen District Court versus Juckett. Oh, by the way, I have a copy of that here, Your Honor, Exhibit B. Evergreen District Court versus Juckett. I read the whole case, Your Honor. It doesn't say driving is a privilege anywhere in it, but I found a few words in between. It says the driver takes the wheel, does so with the knowledge that the use of the license is the privilege, and therefore is consented to take the breathalyzer. Your Honor, I'm going to have to agree with you. You're half right and you're half wrong. It's not driving is a privilege, it's drunk driving a privilege. And the state spends millions of dollars telling people they can drink and drive up to 0.10%, and minors are unlimited. And that's just wrong, Your Honor. How come adults can only drink 0.10% and minors can drink as much as they want? It says on the street signs everywhere, minors unlimited. Well, thanks to me, well, that's good protection for the minors, because we can't have minors drinking as much as they want and going on the highways. So I actually did something good for the safety of children, because they shouldn't be able to drink an unlimited amount of booze, right? Do you remember way back when, 15, 20 years ago, all the signs used to say minors unlimited? I was beating tickets for minors who got pulled over drunk driving like popcorn coming out of an air hopper until I brought that up. But yeah, it's drunk driving the privilege, not driving.
So what about this income tax? What about this Federal Reserve? I worked with Charles Collins. I'm not sure if you got to meet him, if you knew him, got to hear him. He was running for president in 1996.
I have heard of his name, but I don't know him.
And, well, the very few Americans have, because he was the first Republican to sign up before Bob Dole, before Pat Buchanan, before Alan Keyes. He was the first Republican to sign up, but you never heard about him because every time he got on stage to tell the Republican Party that we could buy back the Federal Reserve, and suddenly every cameraman on stage cut their cameras off, pointed them at the ground. Now, what happened with Bernard? He simply, anytime anybody tries to set up a competing bank, a competing system, the feds crack down on them because the feds work for the Federal Reserve, don't seem to a private corporation, not the citizens of the United States. Do I have a correct view on what's going on here?
Well, like I said, I'm not familiar with that case.
I'm not talking about just his case. I'm not talking about just his case. I'm talking about anybody anywhere that goes up against the banking systems.
Hey, anybody who fights the system, they will attack you. I've been attacked recently, okay? And if you get really good at this, they'll charge you with unauthorized practice of law. If you out-debate the judges, they'll send you to a mental hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. They tried doing that to me.
They did that to Paul Pantone. They tried to do that to me. And they just did that to Mark Taylor, who was speaking out against the pharmaceutical companies from his viewpoint as a first student shot at Columbine by drugged students. And you know, they locked him up for a year and kept feeding him drugs.
When you start talking about the Jews, they'll accuse you of being crazy.
Been there and done that. My website is blocked in every library around the country. You know, they try to say it's a porno site, and the only thing that's up there is information about that anybody would find objectionable is about Israel, about the Zionists, and about the Jews.
Well, see, here's the thing: people would try to accuse somebody like me or you of being anti-Semitic, and my response has always been, "Well, I might be. Well, I don't know what that is. Can you explain to me what anti-Semitic is?" And any so-called Jewish person you ask that will they'll shut their pie. They'll refuse to answer. Do you know what a Semite is?
Me and you.
A Semite is no. Well, I'm not white.
Okay.
Okay. I am Mexican, 1/4 Apache Indian, and part Italian, but I'm not really Mexican because I wasn't born in Mexico.
Okay.
I was born a couple miles south of the border, so haha, you can laugh at this. You can call me a Texican. Okay, and I was raised by a white man. That's why I don't have any slur or slang to my speech. I don't even speak Spanish. I understand some of it, but I can't even speak it. And I was raised by a white man, so this is why I speak really good English. But if you see me, I'm very light-skinned. You would think that I'm Italian or Spaniard.
Okay, so Semite, the definition of a Semite.
A Semite is a Shemite. It comes from Shem. Shem is a Hebrew. A Hebrew is a white man. So when you're calling me anti-Semite, are you telling me that I hate white people? Do I look like a black supremacist that hates white people? That's just ridiculous. How can you say I'm anti-Semitic when the fact is most of my friends are white people? That's just ridiculous.
And we crossed the Hebrews, the Israelites, according to Christian identity, which I've written a book about.
Well, the Bible says at Revelations 2:9 and Revelations 3:9 to beware those who call themselves the Jew, but who are not the Jew, but who lie and are from the synagogue of Satan. Now ask yourself today in 2011, who goes to synagogues?
Well, that is on the front and back cover of my book, Mystery Babylon, The New World Order Unveiled. It's the Israelite Handbook for True Christians. And I've got the whole stories in there about the Mossad, the Jews running drugs, using the CIA and the Mossad to run drugs, and presidents actually covering for them.
You know how I can absolutely and conclusively 100% prove that anybody who claims to be Jew is in fact a pathological liar, as stated in John 8:44?
Please, tell me.
Can we dig up the actual burial ground, the coffin of Shem, Isaac, Abraham, or Peter? No, we can't. If we can't dig up the actual coffin, the grave, and of Shem, Isaac, Abraham, or Peter as a gauge for a test, we can't stick a needle into their arm, grab some fresh blood out, and do a DNA test to compare their DNA to your DNA. We have no way of proving that you're actually a Jew. And here's another thing. If Jew really comes from the tribe of Judah, Dan, or David, then you wouldn't know who you are, because you would be one of the 12 tribes. Actually, there's 13 tribes, because the Levites were the 13th tribe. I call them the de facto tribe, because they were dispersed among the 12 other tribes. But if you are really one of the real Jew, and I'm not talking about people say, you're castigating Jews. I said, no, I'm not talking about real Jews. I'm only talking about those who falsely claim to be Jew, but who are not the Jew, but who lie and are from the synagogue of Satan. I'm not talking about real Jews. If this is a real Jew, this doesn't apply to you. And here's the truth. You would not know if you're a Jew if you're one of the lost sheep. And it's the reason, they're called the lost sheep, is because they do not know who they are, because they're lost. Now here's what happened. When the Israelites, the lost sheep, the 12 tribes of Israel, they were being slaughtered. So they fled and hid out in the Caucasus Mountains. That's where we get the term Caucasian from.
Yes.
Among the first of the tribes to leave the Caucasus Mountains was the tribe of Judah, Dan, and David. And they went down into the land of Nod and interbreeded with the people of the land of Nod, which the evidence is starting to come out that those could have been like the Neanderthal man or the Cro-Magnon man. They also went into the area of the Mongols and the Turks. This is why those you see today who falsely claim to be Jew have a slightly olive-complected skin and a hook-shaped nose. And the Bible says he marked his people so that we know who we are, and they also marked their people so we know who they are. The Neanderthal man is the human. He is the sub-man. He's not a man. He's an animal. But see, the Jews are actually the mixed breed. That those who call themselves the Jew aren't Jew. They're really the mixed breed Canaanites. And you don't want to get that mixed up with Cain and the son of Canaan. You don't want to get those two mixed up. When you read it, the Canaanites dishonored their father. And the two brothers saw what their brother did to their father, and they walked backwards toward their father and placed some kind of a drape or clothing over him, because I guess they found him probably naked on a field somewhere, that his son did something to him that's just not kosher. And when the father woke up and saw that what his son had done to him and knew what he did to him, he cursed him to forever be a slave to his brothers, and his children's children would forever be a slave. Well, Revenge of the Neanderthal talks about the revenge they want to get on us. They're pissed off that they're cursed. And that's what's going on today. Those who call themselves the Jew have reversed everything. They've made us their slaves. The Bible says we were supposed to kill them off. We didn't do it because, well, maybe their women were too good looking. They just couldn't do it. And we weren't supposed to take any of their women. We were supposed to kill them. And we didn't do that. So now the Bible says they shall forever be a thorn in our side. And there we have it. They run Hollywood, they run the news, the bench, the bar, the press, and according to the 7 Jewish Noahide laws, they've established the rubric of the Jewish courts in our court system combined with the Roman civil law. They've set aside the real law and replaced it with the statutory law. And I don't know, have you ever heard of the Kol Nidre?
Not sure on that, no.
The Kol Nidre is the Jewish oath.
Oh, Kol Nidre, yes, sir.
The Kol Nidre. It's an oath that says they reject all other oaths. So I got to ask you, how can a Jew be a judge? How can a Jew be a prosecutor? How can a Jew be an attorney when they take the Kol Nidre? Their attorney's oath means nothing. Their prosecutor's oath means nothing. Their judge's oath means nothing. How can he give me a fair ruling? How can he uphold the laws of the state of Washington or the laws of the United States? How can he swear to uphold the state and federal constitution when, according to his Jewish faith or religion, he rejects all other oaths? He's committed perjury as oath of office before he even took it. His oath means nothing. There's no way I'm going to get a fair sentence in this guy's court. So I'm putting together a write-up showing how this violates even the religious sections of all the state constitutions, which I'm seeing now that they've worded to make it so that you can't question a judge's faith. If you try to question a judge in any court in any state what his religion is, they'll tell you they don't have to answer that question.
Okay, hold on.